Amen. All right, so ongoing class of Revelation, and I know you're not seeing this. I just wanted to kind of make a point. As I mentioned last time, the chapter 17 deals mainly with the spiritual aspect of the 7-year kingdom, and that is the one world religion. But this particular chapter 18 is going to deal more with the economic. There are mentions of both, but it's more the economic. And it's my understanding that both of these chapters are discussing the same entity, if you will, the same kingdom, the same empire, which is the one world government, and its spiritual one world religion. And it's also going to be talking about the one world economy. Keep in mind that in the 7 years, which is the last 7 years, clearly, delineated as that in the Revelation and in Daniel 9:27, what we have is first 3.5 being a period where there's going to be the so-called golden age, or the age of Lord Maitreya, peace on earth, kumbaya for all. It's going to be a time where the world is going to think that they finally arrived, and that everyone is going to be enlightened. That's the idea. And the Antichrist is coming on the scene as a man, as a person, a real person who has all the ideas about how to fix the world. The Revelation opens up for the 7-year period in chapter 6, and the first thing that comes right off the chute is 4 horses, four horsemen of the apocalypse, as it's called. So, which is going to result in the destruction of 1/4 of the Earth's population. Right now, that'd be 2 billion people. So it's my understanding that he's going to come on the scene and be the wonder kid. He's going to fix all of it. They're looking for somebody how can we get out of this mess? Just like the Germans look for a Hitler. And so he's going to come on the scene, and for the first 3.5 years, the Jews are going to consider him to be the Messiah, and the various cults or religions are going to consider him to be the one they're looking for. For the Hindus, Lord Maitreya. For the Islamics, he's going to be the Mahdi. And for Christians who are deceived, they're going to think he's Messiah, Jesus come back. So you can see how they're all looking for that now. So when he comes on the scene, and he's doing these great things, and he's smarter than anybody else on earth, not just because of his brain, but because of the demonic powers energizing him and helping him and controlling him to do these things. However, even though they are at this point, he's just a man. Nobody thinks he's anything more than a really smart man. Yeah. So for the first 3.5 years after the total disaster, you're going to have peace. I don't believe that there's going to be any judgments during those 3.5 years. In other words, the 7 years opens up with a tremendous war, a tremendous destruction. And then he comes on the scene to fix it all. And so it's 3.5 years of rebuilding and world peace and everything that people, were wanting to have. Of course, the main impetus is after World War II, is okay, we had this great disaster. Now we want to rebuild. So that's what we did, right? The United States implemented the Marshall Plan. So after this tremendous literal Holocaust in World War II as a general Holocaust, we rebuilt, right? I believe that's what's going to happen. So he's going to come on the scene. And for 3.5 years, he's going to be rebuilding. The world's going to hail him as whatever figure they're looking for, until he goes into the rebuilt temple and he says, I'm God. At that point, the world religion is going to have to go away. In other words, Satan will not compete with a world religion. Satan is when he comes on the scene and he inhabits Antichrist, and Antichrist becomes a Satan, if you will, not just a man. At that point, then he's going to force everybody to worship him, which we call Satanism today. So it's not a matter of Satan plus one world religion. At that point, there is no one world religion. There's only Satanism. So he's using it, right? So the Antichrist is using a one world religion to expand his empire, build his empire, and get everybody on board until that day where he comes out and says, I'm God. And then all bets are off. Okay, even the Jews and the other religions who believe that he is their awaited one, he's the promised child, right? He's the golden child. At that point, they're all going to go, this can't be right. He's fooled us, especially the Jews. They're going to flee. So we're going to read that. And the first point I want to make is the comparison between the religious Babylon and the economic Babylon. And as such, I'm going to make a comparison, comparing it to the United States, only because that's where we live and we're intimately acquainted with it. In 1989, I've been several times, but 1989, I was doing business in DC, and I actually, for the first time, took time off to tour all the memorials and sites, and I was astounded because I'd heard all the propaganda how the United States is not a Christian, Judeo-Christian country. I was taken aback because on every monument, carved in the monument, are scriptures. So how you got to really be ignorant to believe United States. Well, they're not ignorant. They're purposely trying to get us into the one world government. Pluralism, multiculturalism, all the things that the world is trying to preach, because all that is leading into what? It's leading into the one world religion, one world culture, and one world economy. But at any rate, the Washington Monument, at the top of it says, Laus Deo, praise be God. Lincoln Memorial has Lincoln's address, and where he mentioned two scriptures, Matthew 18:7, Psalm 19:9. And so it's like those scriptures are carved into the memorial. And then in Congress, they have a number of scriptures all over the place. They have a big mural of Moses giving the law, you know. And but in the Congress, they have John 1:5, the light shines in darkness. Wisdom is a practical thing. Anyway, that's from Proverbs. He has shown thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee? Micah 6:8. And I can't, I have to stop there, but it just goes on and on and on. The idea that this was not a Judeo-Christian country is absurd. Good thing they carved it into the stone, or they'd be lying to us further about it. There weren't Christians. There are no Christians in this country. We're not a Christian country. And we probably are post-Christian now. In other words, that's where we started out when I was young. It was definitely a Christian country in the sense that whether they're really believers or not, everybody went to church. My neighbors, most of them were Catholic. They went to mass. My family didn't go anywhere because they were not religious. But it's like I had friends who were Jewish and they went to synagogue. In other words, everybody believed in God and they were going someplace, right? Sunday you couldn't go to any stores because they're all shut down. Okay, and you say, oh, that's the United States. Imagine young people hearing that and going, I never heard any of that stuff.
Yeah, there was prayer in school.
Okay, my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Cohen, a devout Jew, had a Bible on her desk. Okay, and I mean, there was bad things, there was segregation, there's a lot of things that needed to be fixed. But whatever community you were in Latino, the Black community, whatever, there were all those communities had a serious sense of God and faith. Okay. And despite all the problems, the people that came here wanted to establish this as a Christian country within their own respective, belief systems. But in the tribulation, I wanted to contrast that because, when you say United States, it's kind of similar. You can use a similar concept. In other words, we were a Judeo-Christian country, but we had an economic engine that was unheard of. After World War II, we became the economic power. Okay, so you had your religious aspect, if you will, and you had your political economic aspect. And that's what's happening with Babylon here. In chapter 17, you had as I went over last week, you have your spiritual or religious aspect, the one world religion. And then in this chapter, we're going to find out more about the economic system. So we're, in a sense, the United States was, I guess, still is an empire, but not in the sense of the original empires I've mentioned. But, there was a sense of Pax Americana. The Romans had Pax Romana, which meant that the peace of Rome. Of course, what that meant is everywhere they went, they sent their soldiers, and you're going to, become part of Rome and adhere to Roman principles, or we will kill you. Okay, not so much literally, but the soldiers will enforce you obeying whatever we're doing. Okay, as Pax Romana. So in a sense, we have that. In other words, the United States, we went everywhere, and with our military and our influence, we established our empire, if you will, for good, bad, or ugly. That's how it worked. So I'm just saying that this is a parallel in a sense for any empire, and that is this empire, which is going to be worldwide, is going to have the spiritual aspect and the economic aspect. So let's continue on down. I know you can't see anything because the monitor is not working, but we will use our imaginations. Remember when you were in kindergarten and the teacher said, use your imagination, children? I can't remember, but you probably do. Kindergarten's a long time ago for me. I see a few nods. Okay, a couple of you. Okay. Anyway, so just to paint that little picture, we're now going to go into what is primarily the economic Babylon. So if you have your Bible, we're going to chapter 18 and we're going down through the verses. Verse 1. After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. Okay, so Revelation is a series of small visions. And this is the second vision, but from what I read in the context, I have to believe that chapter 17 and 18 are an extension of each other. They're really two sides of the same coin, two portraits of the same picture, if you will, two angles. Verse 2, and he cried mightily with a loud voice. And when an angel cries mightily, I think you're going to hear it, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. Okay. And it's become a dwelling place for demons, prison for foul spirits, a cage for every unclean, hated bird. So God is telling us, in different descriptives here, basically, this is a demon-possessed prison, right? And so when we say Babylon, keep in mind that Babylon it has many levels. Babylon is a system, it is a religion, it is an economic powerhouse for the time. And as we've seen in chapter 17, it's situated upon 7 hills. In other words, we haven't totally switched. We're still 17 and 18 are talking about Babylon, but now we're kind of easing into the economic aspects in addition. And so it's full of every kind of demonic creature. So what kind of place is it? Is this a place that sinners want to go? You betcha. This is Las Vegas on steroids. When I was young, the preachers used to call it Sin City, and now it's just a joke. I have, a friend of mine, a partner at work, likes to go there, and and it's a joke. Oh, I'm going to Sin City. Ha ha ha. They don't really believe it's a sinful city. It's just like a joke label to them. So, but at any rate, Babylon is way greater than Las Vegas in its depths of depravity. And what we're seeing is that it is a demonically energized world system. Verse 3, for all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Of course, that's really talking mainly about the spiritual fornication that I mentioned last time in chapter 17. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants. Now we're starting to get into the economic. The merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. So, yes, there is a capital city. There's always a capital city, right? If you say Russia, you think Moscow. Think United States, you think DC. but there's much greater than that. But this is kind of zeroing in on the capital city of the one world system. The merchants in the abundance speak of goods and trades. In other words, so it's pretty obvious that that's what we're dealing with. In verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people." Okay, who are my people? Are these the earth dwellers? Are these the sinful people? No, they're my people. Okay, so now is that the church? No, it's not the church. Church left at the beginning of the 7 years. These are the tribulation believers. And so there are people in there. Um, I'll use that poor analogy of Las Vegas again. Compared to this, it pales. But there's a town next to Las Vegas called Henderson. I don't know if anybody's been out there. I travel with my band out there, so I know where it is. But it's a matter of in Henderson, you have a lot of great churches and believers, and a lot of these people work in Las Vegas. They're waiters, whatever. They work in various capacities because they got to earn a living. But there are some great Christians there, so it's almost the same thing. If God said, uh, "Las Vegas is about to fall, Babylon the small is about to go," said, "Get out of her, my people," then the people in Henderson would have to flee, right? I mean, it's kind of like that. So, her sins have reached to heaven, verse 5, and God has remembered her iniquity. So you can't pull the wool over God's eyes. Wink, wink. I think I'm hiding from God. He can't see me now because nobody can see me. That means God can't see me. No, I think he sees everything. Verse 6, render to her just as she rendered to you. So this is kind of a tit for tat thing. God's not really like that, but God in his word is making a point that, the saints are crying out, when are you going to get, when are you going to take revenge upon all the evil things that this system has done to Christians, to believers? Let's say Christians in the sense of believers. So, there is a time of upcomings. There is a time where things are going to be leveled out. God is going to do an accounting. Verse 6, render to her just as she rendered to you, repay her double according to her works, in the cup which she has mixed double for her. So this world system, which is purely 100% anti-God. Keep in mind, there's no God in any of this system. If there was some real godliness going on after the rapture, it's unlikely. But whatever might have been going on when Satan inhabits the Antichrist and declares he's God, at that point, there's no righteousness going on anywhere in the earth except for individuals. Just like today, you have to have an individual come to God, and in that sense, God is represented. So we come on down to verse 8, therefore her plagues will come in one day. Okay, so that seems to mean hemera is the Greek word. It usually means literal day. Death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges her. So Antichrist headquarters for the first 3.5 years apparently is in Rome. I say that because this is talking about the people coming out of her. This is the capital city of the earth, and he's the ruler. So it seems logical. It doesn't directly say that. I believe that's it. We know for sure that when our Battle of Armageddon comes, his headquarters is in Jerusalem, because the word says that directly. But we also know that he would be in the temple. Remember, it says he goes and sits in the temple. So at that point, he's moving himself and his headquarters. In other words, the headquarters is wherever you are, right? So he's moving his headquarters to Jerusalem and the rebuilt temple, what we call the third temple, which doesn't exist yet, but it's coming. Verse 9, the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning. Okay, so this world system, especially focused in apparently Rome from the Seven Hills reference, not so much Rome as we see it today, but what it's going to become. It's going to have a great disaster And is it going to be purely spiritual? Is God going to do purely a spiritual thing? Is it nuclear? We don't know. It just says there's burning. So I think it's probably going to be, in this sense, purely spiritual, but it could be a limited strategic nuke that hits the city. You can take out a city very targeted these days if you want to. But they're standing at a distance for the fear of her torment, verse 10, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. Okay. 1 hour your judgment has come. And the word in the Greek is aura, which it's morphed into our word hour. But in those days, it didn't mean an hour. In other words, they didn't wear a watch sundial and go, oh, it looks like 10 o'clock. It didn't work like that. So it means like a particularly limited amount of time. It might be a literal hour as we count it, but it's going to be a short time. So it's going to be a particular day and a particular short time. And at that time, the city is going to be destroyed by fire in some way. Verse 11, and the merchants of the earth, keep in mind, as we read down, we're leaving more of the spiritual emphasis. Now we're getting more into the economic Babylon. Keep in mind also that Babylon, at the time of this writing, was well known as a code word for Rome. When Peter wrote to the saints in, I think it's First Peter, he says, to the saints in Babylon. Well, we know for a fact he wrote the letter to Rome. So what was the deal there? Well, most scholars believe that was a code word. So if the Romans intercepted it, they wouldn't see that he's coming directly or prophesying evil against Rome. So he called it Babylon. So it's on two different levels. The early Christians used it as a code word, much like they drew in the sand a fish, ichthus, which is Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior symbol. So in other words, they had certain codes that they used so the Romans, who were the enemies at that time, would not find out what they're up to and wouldn't haul them in, if you will. So the merchants of the earth, economic, they're going to weep and mourn over her. And why do you think? Why would they have such a problem with the nuking or the disaster that's affecting the Roman center of the overall one world economy? No one buys our merchandise anymore. Okay, so this is the center. Probably all the great world computer systems are probably centered there also. Everything's going to be there, right? So for whatever reason, the center of economy is going to be destroyed. And their main concern is not so much for all the people that were destroyed. They don't care about that too much. You know, what they care about is their business. I was getting rich through you guys. Now you're gone. Woe is me. How am I going to continue getting rich? Merchandise was of gold and silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, of every citron, a very special wood, every kind of ivory. In other words, the Lord gives us a list of what was considered to be the most valuable substances in the first century, because they would understand what that means. You know, he doesn't give us substances that would be valuable to us today, although many of them are the same, right? I see commercials on the TV all the time for gold. You know, the economy is going to hell in a handbasket. Buy this gold from us. You know, so the more things change, the more they stay the same. And the next verse continues. It says, you know, cinnamon, incense, fragrant oil, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, and bodies of souls. But the last one is the key right here. The bodies and souls of men. Well, how can you traffic in the bodies and souls of men? Has that ever happened in the world? Right. So interestingly enough, as the world, we think we become more progressed and any kind of slavery is gone or outlawed. Of course, it's not. The Muslims has always been the greatest slave traders in the world. And to this day, right now, they are the greatest slave traders in the world. I know you're not going to hear that on the nightly news, but look it up yourself. You're going to find it. They are still, because Islam has no problem with that. That's how evil Islam is. Oh, they don't tell you that, Welcome to Islam, religion of peace. They never tell you the truth of what they're really up to, like any cult or false religion. But at any rate, so this is obviously as evil as it gets, and they're making all kinds of money off of that. Verse 15, the merchants of these things who became rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. Verse 16, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple, scarlet, gold. In other words, this tremendous wealthy type of dress. For in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea stood at a distance. Okay. And they cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like, or who is like this great city? Um, I I I talked to one of the guys I work with the other day. He's Italian heritage, and he went back for a cruise to Italy. And I said, where did you the boat? He went to Rome, so I said, where did you get port? Where did it go into port? And he told me. I said, could you see Rome from there? No, well, you can't because Rome's at a higher elevation. But if Rome was on fire, if the whole city had been destroyed, the plumes from it would go up probably at least 60,000 feet. And at that height, I'm using like Mount St. Helens as just a little thing, right? That wasn't a fire like this. But in other words, when there's a great conflagration like or a volcano, the plumes go so high that they tell the jets they got to go around them. I remember they rerouted the jets because all that debris would come into the engines and they would conk out and it would crash. So they routed them around. Then my point is that when you have this great a disaster, the smoke that arises from it is going to be visible from very, very far away. So that's why I wouldn't rule out Rome, although you have to use a little imagination to understand, paint this picture. I got a little picture there. Oh, you can't see it yet, but of an artist's depiction of it. But it's going to be a tremendous disaster for what I believe is Rome. Verse 19, they threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing and saying, Alas, alas, that great city in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she was made desolate. So it's, today, I guess in a sense you could say New York. New York is one of those, Port of LA. In other words, probably Port of LA even more so. We were just watching something about the Port of LA and how they're expanding it. I mean, it's just constantly getting bigger and bigger. But the idea is these goods are coming from China, right? Japan, South Korea, wherever. And they're all coming into the Port of LA. And maybe you remember during COVID, they couldn't process them all. And they had all these ships sitting out there, right? Well, this is a similar picture. Instead of LA, the whole world by that time, they're all going to Rome, is what I have to understand here. If you believe it's not Rome, that's fine. I wouldn't argue about it because it is a city set on 7 hills, and I've heard some people say it could be other than Rome. But as I mentioned before, if you look back in history at the time of this writing, especially 7 hills, the city of 7 hills was always Rome. It was the center of the empire. Right, these guys are living under the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire is centered in Rome. And this, in other words, you didn't have to explain this to the disciples living at this time. They totally understood this, like we understand Washington, D.C. You don't have to. Oh, I'm going to Congress. You don't have to go through a lengthy explanation. Oh, yeah, that's in a place called Washington, D.C. District. Go through the history. We don't do that because you just know it, right? Same thing when he talked to Jews. Jews already knew all the Judaism. They didn't have to be re-educated in Judaism. So rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you of her. So in verse 21 going down, we see the reference to the death of the Christians in the Colosseum, and especially Peter and Paul. That's obvious. That's historical. We know for a fact Peter was crucified upside down in Rome. We know that Paul was decapitated in Rome. I mean, we're not conjecturing here. So the leaders of the church were killed in Rome, and in the Colosseum, everybody, even if they don't know a lot of history, I think they're pretty well known, and they know that the Christians were fed to the lions in Rome. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea. Thus with violence the great city of Babylon shall be thrown down and shall not be any more. So in case we're wondering how fast this is going to happen, I think that's, take a huge rock and throw it in the ocean. How fast is destruction going to happen? Like a asteroid. I hope we don't have any asteroid strikes. I believe there are some in the Revelation, but so far, I'm not aware of, well, there was one, I think, in 1911 or somewhere in the teens there in Russia, where they believe an asteroid struck and wiped out a tremendous area. At that time, there was hardly any population, but every tree was blown out. It was like a nuclear bomb went off. So I can't remember the name of the place because it's one of those weird Russian words. Okay, so my daughter speaks Russian fluently, but I don't. So when we see Russian or Chinese or some other language on the TV, we have to ask her what it is. She studied Mandarin in UCF. The sound of harpists, musicians, flautists, trumpeters should not be heard anymore. So obviously they had a really great symphonic band there, right? Just like New York does. Just like Boston has. So that's the city's going to be totally wiped out. No craftsmen. God is going through a lot of extra explanation. He's painting the whole picture for us in case we miss it. No craftsman or any craft will be found in you anymore, and the sound of the millstone should not be heard anymore. Millstone in those days would be, production, right? You're producing grain. So. Verse 23, the light of a lamp shall not shine in you anymore, and the voice of bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you anymore, for your merchants were the great men of the earth. Well, that's it. So when we're talking about the merchants coming to the city and the sphere of the economy, it's clearly the world, the great men of the earth. It's not the great men of Italy or the Mediterranean Sea. So this kingdom that he's going to set up is going to be worldwide, and he says that over and over again. And in her was found the blood of prophets and saints and all who were slain on the earth. Okay, so that's what I mentioned. So the Christians in the tribulation are going to be slain in Rome initially, and we know historically that the Christians, Peter and Paul, were slain there. And what we have now is the last thing I have to say about this. Let me see if I can do it. Jesus says, "I'll be back." So next week, yeah. So for, forget the Terminator. Jesus makes the Terminator look like a kindergarten kid. I mean, he comes back. Every army in the world is assembled in the valley of Armageddon, and he just, in one word out of his mouth, wipes them all out.